I don't even know how to start this. I don't really talk about it, but sometimes I think writing it out might make me feel saner, I guess. It's just that even now, after all these years, I can't think about that closet without my skin crawling. I live in a new place now, nowhere near where it happened, and I've done my best to forget. But no matter where I go, it's like the memory of it follows me, creeping back in when I least expect it, tugging at the edges of my mind. It started when I was 15. My family had just moved into this old house, a 2-story place in a quiet town. It wasn't anything grand, but it was charming enough. Old, creaky floors, drafty windows, and, unfortunately, a lot of dark corners and shadows. The house had one of those layouts that's easy to get lost in, like a maze, with little alcoves and random doors that led to empty spaces, as if the walls held secrets. My room was on the 2nd floor, tucked away at the end of a narrow hallway. The only window faced the backyard, which was overgrown with wild bushes and trees that seemed to lean in closer each day. But my room had one feature that set it apart: a closet. A huge, sprawling walk-in closet that took up half the wall. My parents thought I was lucky to have such a big space. I didn't feel that way. From the first night, I felt unsettled by that closet. It wasn't just the size, but something about it felt off, like it shouldn't be there, like it belonged to a different place, a different house. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was just being paranoid. It was an old house, after all. Things were bound to feel a little creepy at first, but no matter how I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from inside that closet. First, it was just little things. The door would be slightly open in the morning, even though I was certain I'd closed it before going to bed. My clothes would feel damp, like the closet was pulling in moisture, even though the rest of the house was dry. But I could live with that. I even convinced myself it was just an old house quirk. Almost every night, I'd find myself dreaming of that closet door. In the dream, I'd be lying in bed, staring at it. Sometimes it was wide open, yawning, dark and empty, and I could sense something in there. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there, hiding just out of view. Other times, the door would be closed, and I'd feel a horrible, suffocating pressure, as if whatever was in there was pressing against the door, straining to get out. My parents thought I was having nightmares, just teenage imagination running wild, but I knew it was more than that. I could feel it, this cold, crawling sensation that something wasn't right. One night, I decided to put an end to it. I thought that maybe if I faced it, really looked inside the closet, I could put this whole thing to rest. I waited until midnight, until the house was silent, and I got out of bed and walked over to the closet. My hands were shaking, but I took a deep breath and opened the door. It was empty, just my clothes hanging there, a few boxes on the floor. I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment, like I'd expected to find something there, some proof of what I'd been feeling. But as I stood there, staring into the closet, a shiver ran down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was looking back at me. I closed the door as quickly as I could and went back to bed, trying to ignore the crawling feeling that spread over my skin. That night, I dreamt of the closet again. Only this time, it was different. My hand reaching for the handle, but something was wrong. The air around me was thick, almost suffocating, and there was this low, humming noise, like distant whispers. I could feel something on the other side, pressing against the door. And then, slowly, the door began to open on its own, creaking as it revealed a darkness that seemed deeper than anything I'd ever seen. Inside, I saw nothing, just pitch black, but I could feel it, this presence, like something ancient and unknowable, watching me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as something slowly emerged from the shadows. It didn't have a face or a form I could describe, just a shifting darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. And as it moved closer, I felt this overwhelming urge to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The closet door was open, wider this time, and I swear I saw something shift in the darkness before I scrambled out of bed and slammed it shut. After that night, things got worse. I'd hear soft scratching sounds coming from inside the closet at night, like something trying to claw its way out. My clothes started smelling musty, like damp earth, and sometimes I'd find them scattered across my room in the morning, as if they'd been tossed out. The air in my room grew colder, heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, something rotten and stale. Every night, I'd lie awake, listening to the faint, persistent sounds coming from that closet, feeling the weight of whatever was inside pressing against the door. The final straw came a few weeks later. I'd fallen asleep with the closet door shut tight, a chair propped up against it. But sometime in the night, I woke up to a creaking sound. I sat up, heart racing, and saw the door slowly opening, inch by inch. Couldn't move, couldn't scream. All I could do was watch as it opened wide, revealing the darkness inside. And then I saw it, a shape barely visible shifting in the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall, and thin, with long, twisted limbs that seemed to reach out toward me. Its face, or what I thought was its face, was just a blank, empty void, and as it moved closer, I could feel this horrible, suffocating fear, like it was draining the life out of me just by being near. I wish I could describe what I saw in that void, but even now, I don't have the words for it. It was nothingness, yet it had weight, a presence that felt ancient and dark, like it came from a place where no light had ever existed. The longer I stared, the more it felt like it was pulling me in, like I was falling forward into that empty, hungry space. I could barely breathe. Every inch of my skin prickled with fear, and the room felt colder, the air thick and stale, pressing down on my chest. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I just sat there, frozen, as it leaned in closer, so close that I felt the air around me twist, felt this sharp, metallic tang in the back of my throat. And then, God, I swear I felt it reach inside my mind. Not physically, not like a hand, but like it pressed some dark, invisible tendril against my thoughts. I remember one thought, clear as day, screaming inside my head. This thing is alive. The room spun and my vision blurred. In that terrible moment, all I wanted was to tear my eyes away, to look anywhere but at that blank face. But it was like the thing had me in a trance. My mind was unraveling in slow, agonizing seconds, as if it was peeling away my sense of self layer by layer. I don't know how long I sat there, but at some point, something in me snapped, like a rubber band pulled too tight. I jerked back, slamming into the headboard, and whatever spell it had on me broke. Suddenly, I could move again. I threw myself off the bed, scrambled to the farthest corner of the room, my back pressed against the wall, knees pulled to my chest. And as I watched, the figure slowly, almost reluctantly, retreated into the closet. It didn't walk or turn. It just withdrew, like smoke being sucked back into a jar. The closet door began to close on its own, inch by inch, until finally, it clicked shut, as if nothing had happened. The silence that followed was so intense it felt deafening. I stayed curled up in that corner until the first light of dawn crept through my window, afraid that if I so much as blinked, the thing might come back out. Took everything in me to get up, to even walk past that door. My parents didn't ask why I was up so early. They just gave me a puzzled look and carried on with their morning routine. I could barely eat. Every time I glanced up at the staircase, I felt that horrible chill. My mom asked if I was feeling okay, and I mumbled something about not sleeping well, but I didn't dare tell them what I'd seen. Couldn't. They'd never believe me, and part of me didn't want to believe it either. For a while, I avoided my room as much as I could, spending hours at the library after school, pretending to do homework but really just trying to keep my mind off that thing in the closet. But I couldn't avoid it forever. Every night, I had to go back to that room, to that closet, and every night, the air felt thicker, colder, as if whatever was inside knew I was trying to ignore it. The dreams got worse, too. In one of them, I saw myself standing in front of the closet, the door wide open, but I couldn't see inside. All I could see was darkness, this thick, writhing shadow that seemed to reach out toward me. I could hear whispers, faint but insistent, like they were speaking in a language I couldn't understand. And then the darkness surged forward, swallowing me whole. I'd wake up choking, my throat dry, gasping for air. I'd always find myself staring at the closet, heart hammering, certain that the thing inside was watching me, waiting for me to fall asleep again. It was as if the closet had become a living thing, aware of my fear, feeding on it. Then came the night when I heard it, really heard it. I just started to drift off when I heard a faint, scratching sound. Slow, deliberate, like something dragging a nail along the inside of the closet door, trying to get out. I lay there, paralyzed, listening as the scratching grew louder, more insistent. And then, something even worse. A soft, muffled whisper, so faint I could barely make it out, like a voice pressed against the other side of the door. "Let me out." The words were distorted, garbled, but I knew what I'd heard. It wasn't a voice I recognized. It didn't even sound human. My whole body went cold, and I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I just lay there, listening as it whispered again, more urgently this time, a raspy, desperate plea. "Let me out. I know you're awake." I don't remember how long I lay there, but at some point, my body gave in, and I must have passed out. When I woke up, the closet door was closed, just like always. But I could still hear those words, echoing in my mind, as if they'd wormed their way into my brain. I started keeping my room light on, hoping that it would keep the thing at bay. But the light did nothing. It only made the shadows seem sharper, deeper, and the whispers didn't stop. Every night, they grew louder, more insistent, like the thing inside was growing stronger. It was no longer just asking to be let out. It was demanding it. Then, one night, I woke up to find the closet door wide open. I don't know how long I stared into that darkness, but as I did, I felt this overwhelming dread, a sense that if I looked too long, something would look back. I knew I had to get out of that room. I climbed out of bed, moving as quietly as I could, keeping my eyes fixed on the open closet. I could feel something watching me from the shadows, feel its gaze crawling over my skin. I made it to the door, hand on the knob, and then I heard it, a soft, raspy laugh coming from the closet. I froze, and in the darkness, I saw something move. Just a flicker, a shift in the shadows, but it was enough. I tore out of that room, down the stairs, and out the front door, not even bothering to put on shoes. I just ran, out into the night, not caring where I was going, only that I needed to get as far away from that house as possible. I ended up spending the night at a friend's place, too terrified to go back until the sun was up. When I finally returned, the house was quiet, my room exactly as I'd left it. But that closet door was shut tight, as if mocking me, daring me to come closer. I don't know what I was thinking, but I found myself standing there, staring at that closet door as if in a trance. I couldn't seem to look away. Even though every instinct was telling me to leave, I felt this strange pull, like it was daring me, taunting me. The house was empty. My parents were out running errands, and I was alone. The silence felt heavy, almost thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. And in that silence, I could swear I heard it again. Not the scratching, Not the whispering, but a faint, slow creak, almost as if something inside the closet was shifting. My pulse quickened. The rational part of my brain was screaming at me to just turn around, walk away, and never look back. But something else, something dark and twisted inside me, wanted to know. I had to know what was in there. If I didn't face it now, I'd spend the rest of my life haunted by this closet, by the shadow that seemed to follow me everywhere. I reached out and gripped the cold brass knob, my hand trembling, and slowly, I began to turn it. The door opened, inch by inch, revealing the dark space inside. I held my breath, straining my eyes to see. For a few seconds, there was nothing, just the empty void where my clothes hung in silent rows. But then, as I took a step closer, I saw it, a shape, barely visible, pressed against the farthest corner of the closet, blending into the darkness like a stain. It didn't move, but I could feel it watching me, feel its awareness like a low, pulsing vibration in the air. The smell hit me then, a damp, earthy scent, like rotting leaves mixed with something foul, something that smelled ancient. And that's when I realized the thing in the closet wasn't a person, or even a creature, but something much worse. Something that shouldn't exist, something that had been waiting there, in the dark, for who knew how long. My stomach twisted with nausea, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. The thing began to shift, almost lazily, stretching itself upward, impossibly tall, its limbs unfolding in strange, jerky movements. I watched, paralyzed, as it slowly turned toward me, its face, or whatever passed for a face, still shrouded in darkness. It smiled. At least, that's what it looked like. A dark, jagged line that stretched across its face, splitting it into a terrible, unnatural grin. There were no teeth, no eyes, just that dark, slashed smile, as if it was mocking me, enjoying my fear. And as I stared, the smile began to grow wider, twisting and stretching until it seemed to take up its entire face, a black hole of emptiness that threatened to pull me in. I stumbled back, my foot catching on the edge of the carpet, and I fell hard, scrambling backward across the floor. The thing started to move toward me, gliding, almost floating, like it wasn't entirely connected to the floor. The smile never wavered, and I could feel this thick, suffocating terror, like my mind was unraveling just by looking at it. "Leave me alone," I gasped, my voice barely a whisper, but I don't think it mattered. It just kept coming closer and closer, until it was nearly at the edge of the closet, its outstretched, spindly arms reaching toward me. And then, just as it was about to cross the threshold, it stopped. It was like there was some kind of invisible barrier, something holding it back. Its smile faded, twisting into something darker, almost frustrated. It reached out, pressing its long fingers against the air, as if testing the boundary, and I realized it couldn't leave the closet. Whatever force kept it trapped in there was still holding it back. But that didn't make it any less terrifying. I scrambled to my feet, slammed the closet door shut, and dragged my dresser in front of it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the edges. I stood there, my back pressed against the door, trying to catch my breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But there was only silence. For days, I refused to sleep in my room. I'd lie awake in the living room, staring at the ceiling, listening for any sounds, any sign that it had somehow broken free. One night, as I lay awake on the couch, I heard it again, the faint, whispering voice, drifting down the stairs like a cold breeze. It wasn't angry or pleading this time, but something worse, patient. Like it knew I couldn't ignore it forever. "Let me out. Let me out." The words slithered into my mind, winding through my thoughts, filling me with dread. It felt like the closet was somehow getting stronger, like the thing inside was reaching further, pushing against the boundaries that kept it trapped. I knew I couldn't stay in that house. I started begging my parents to move, to sell the house, but they wouldn't listen. They didn't understand the darkness that was lurking in my closet, the thing that was growing stronger, hungrier. They wouldn't believe me. Finally, after weeks of relentless fear, something changed. I came home from school one afternoon to find my mom waiting for me at the kitchen table, looking pale and shaken. She told me she'd heard the noises coming from my room while I was at school, and when she went upstairs, she'd found the closet door wide open. But the strange part, the terrifying part, was that the dresser I'd shoved in front of it had been moved, like someone had dragged it across the floor, gouging deep scratches into the wood. She didn't say anything else, just handed me a set of keys and told me we were going to stay at my aunt's place for a few days while they figured out what to do. I didn't need to be told twice. We ended up selling the house a month later, and I never went back. I don't know who bought it, but sometimes I wonder if they ever found out. If they ever heard the scratching in the night, the whispers creeping through the walls, begging to be let out. And every now and then, even now, years later, I'll have a dream about that house. I'll see myself standing in front of the closet, the door wide open, that darkness stretching out toward me. And in those dreams, I always hear it, the same soft whisper, "Let me out." And when I wake up, just for a second, I swear I can feel it standing there, right on the other side of my own closet door, waiting patiently, smiling its dark, jagged smile, knowing that someday I'll have to let it in.